Welcome back to Week in One. Now, this week, Gauteng Premier David Makhura released his first State of Integrity and Anti-Corruption report and says that hundreds of officials have been charged through disciplinary processes and criminal cases have been opened. Sally Badet spoke to Dr. Terence Nombembe, the chairperson of the Gauteng Ethics and Advisory Council.
Dr. Nombembe, thank you so much for joining us in studio. So, talk to me about what your council does in relation to clean governance in Gauteng.
Basically, what the council does, it is an advisory body to the Premier and by extension to the executive committee that he runs within the province. It also extends to advising to the integrity unit that the Premier has in his office.
It's perfectly legal to ask people to subject themselves to a process of vetting. But people are resisting this, aren't they?
I guess it's a natural reaction.
But why is it, if you've got nothing to hide?
It's a natural reaction, but it's part of the internal control system, especially those tasks that are susceptible to temptation, susceptible to coercion, and susceptible to persuasion to do the wrong thing. So that's why we like it. That's why it needs to be done as a mandatory process for those that are at risk.
If people in the supply chain management system refuse, are they going to get fired?
One has got to look at their conditions of employment and make sure that they have been updated and revised to be consistent with the nature of their job, the risk, and the new provisions that are associated with their jobs.
Do you have an estimate, even if it's a rough guess, on how much of the Gauteng government, the civil servants, are rotten? Is it half? Is it 10%? Is it 80%? Do you have a measure of how much rot you still have to get out?
The issue with that, Sally, is that it's not about the number of people, but it's the quantum of what those people are exposed to in terms of responsibility. So if I were to hazard a guess, it's not all the civil servants that are part of the bad light that Gauteng may be associated with, but it's those that have got the privilege and the honor of being accessible to the coffers and the responsibilities for tendering and dispensing of money.
The Premier yesterday sounded absolutely determined to root out the rot, and it was encouraging to see. But the concern is it's just great words, and we're still going to see corruption in the system. How much action do you, how many teeth do you have? How much action can the various units take? I think you work in conjunction with the Special Investigating Unit on serious cases, but are we going to see a real difference? And if so, how long is it going to take?
Sally, the trick with this situation is that you have got to get those that are in charge of governance to do their work. And by that, I'm making reference to the one recommendation that we've made, which is yet to be rolled out, which is to have effective executive accountability. Unless that is cemented and institutionalized, you will have loopholes in terms of the safeguarding and oversight over those vulnerable resources.
Now, the price of petrol continues to rise, yet commuters' salaries remain the same. Already, the e-hailing drivers are saying they're operating at a loss due to high commission deducted by companies. eNCA's Dan Moyane spoke to Batuga Mbelengwa, e-hailing operators spokesperson.
Mr. Mbelengwa, good afternoon. Tough days indeed to be in the transport business with these fuel hikes, which currently don't seem are going to end anytime soon. What's the impact of the latest round of fuel price increases?
Our challenge really at the moment is that, look, we've long had the issue of not being able to determine prices for ourselves within the e-hailing sector. And this will impact further upon us within the time now with rising fuel costs. Furthermore, we are the first to be abandoned in such times. Our services will be used less by commuters as we are currently experiencing. With the high costs, everything is less. Most people are not going out as much. Tourism is reducing, travel and holistically is reducing. And we are then losing revenue, we are losing business.
We saw the government yesterday, very late yesterday afternoon, extending that relief, that reduction, temporary reduction by R1.50 for another month. And from month 2 in July to August, it's going to go down by 75 cents and a couple of other tweaks. But what you are suggesting, you want more of a permanent solution going forward.
I think currently we need a drastic intervention. So if levies are constituting 66% of the cost per litre of fuel, we should reduce that to below 30% or even 20%, so that society and the poorest of the poor can continue to work, can continue to be mobile, because the economy of any country is really reliant on the efficiency of its public transportation system. And moving forward, we do need to have a critical conversation that will then advance a more permanent solution, because, cost of living, cost of running businesses is really essential. It impacts upon us. We see more people becoming poorer. We're seeing more job losses. So it's just not sustainable to keep a fuel cost so high when we need lower fuel costs in order to then revitalize our economy.
Are you seeing a real drop in users of e-hailing services currently, because economic times are tough?
Well, look, we've barely recovered from COVID, and we're still trying to recover from that. So we are now seeing yet another drop. That is very true. We are seeing a drastic drop in users. The amount of trips coming in at the airport have started going down quite effectively. The amount of time people are spending online without receiving trips is much higher. The waiting period is up to 2 hours at a go at the moment for a driver to receive a trip at certain times. The peaks are not peaking as much. The downtimes are lasting much longer. So yes, we are already feeling that impact.
Comair flights were grounded this week, leaving customers stranded. But what impact is this going to have on the airline industry? eNCA anchor Matsena spoke to the Competition Commission about what this means for the airline industry.
We do understand that the Competition Commission engaged the different airlines today in terms of a way forward and the implications of what's now happened with Comair. Tell us what happened in that meeting.
Well, firstly, it is to say that we are gravely concerned about that market, because the exit of Comair means that about 40% of the capacity in the market is no longer available. And obviously that reduces competition. We are worried about the price increases that may result from that, and just the long-term impact. So the industry is really in turbulent times. So we reached out to the industry to understand what the implications of this are as far as they can see it, but also to urge them not to take advantage of the situation, because there is, in a situation like this, a possibility of them gaining market power because of the lack of competition, and because this is a sudden shock in the supply. So we wanted to get assurances from them that.
Did you get those?
We did. Actually, they were quite positive, and I'm really grateful to the leadership of the industry. All of them that we met today were very positive about this, and they do have their own plans on dealing with some of the constraints. Obviously, I can't share those. These are competitively sensitive. But also, we did get an assurance that there would be no price manipulation. Now, this doesn't mean that prices may not go up at all. We know that the fuel prices are going up. We know that there are supply and demand issues when it comes to the sale of tickets for airlines, but they would not do anything out of the ordinary.
Stay tuned to Weekend One, keeping you abreast of all the top stories that made headlines over the past 7 days.